So viewers, moving on to our next segment, Roundtable, and the topic is why is cloud technology the next big thing, which will be moderated by Nurulan.
Hi, Assalamu alaikum. Good evening, Sarah. Thank you so much for the introduction and for us to officially kick off this panel discussion that we have today. First of all, I see a lot of attendees online and a lot of attendees who will be watching us live streaming this, and also those who will be watching this later on. This is a huge shout out, I think, to the CXO Global Forum and the group and all the team for organizing this fantastic 3-day conference on all things technical, all things digital, and looking how we are going to implement our learnings together into the sessions going forward. So thank you so much for the opportunity. My name is Nurulan, and I'm heading the Career Development Center at the Millennium Universal College. That's a transnational education providers. And I'm joined by a very esteemed panel today who I will be introducing shortly. But let me have a little word around the topic that we have for today. And what better a time and point in the year where we are actually discussing this topic when the whole world has gone through the trauma of the COVID-19, and now in the recovery phase when we look at organizations rethinking the way that they have to going for the future. So for those of you who are joining us, we like to also keep this interactive. If there are any comments, questions, suggestions, queries that you have, feel free to use our social media channels, and our team will get in touch with us for any questions that you may have, and we'll be able to answer them. So why is cloud technology the next big thing? That is the topic that we are going to spend around 45-50 minutes today. And I am so honored by because I'm joined by the stalwarts who have been working on the digital landscape for such a while now. So we'll start off with the introductions, and if we could also have a sound check simultaneously, I think that'll be great. So Iqbal Yusuf Sheikh Saab, the CEO and Master franchise of AppTech Pakistan. Assalamu alaikum, Iqbal sir, for joining us. Can you hear us okay?
Yes, walaikum assalam. I hope you are hearing me.
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear. So thank you so much for taking out time. Next up, I have the division head of Alibaba Cloud Pakistan, Ali Raza, who is here with us as well. Hi, Ali, how are you?
Hi, I'm fine. How are you?
Good, good, good. I'm pretty sure that Alibaba is the next buzzword, and a lot of the attendees who are attending us today will also enjoy from the insights that you have to share. Next up, we have Mr. Mohammed Usman, who's the founder and MD of Sherdil Group. Usman, hi, how are you? You'll have to unmute.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. And thank you for joining.
Thank you so much for taking out. And in completing our panel for today, we have Zishan Bukhari, who's the ICT sector expert with USAID Chemonics. Hi, Zishan.
Hey, Noor, how are you?
I am good.
All is good.
All is good. That's
Wonderful.
A familiar office that you're sitting in at. So I'm sure that this discussion would be very interactive and something. I just want to start off by setting the scene for all of you and for all of the people who are watching us. Just about the brink of 2020, there was a research that Harvard Business Review did, and in which they said that, what is going to cause change management. And the statistics that were there, it actually showed that, 750 C-suite level CEOs, managing directors, industry leaders are thinking about transitioning their organizations in the next 8 to 10 years. And the transition was all around digital transformation. And the transition was all around the fact that we are looking at letting go of the traditional way of working. We're looking at more opportunities for our employees to work remotely. And then in a blink of the time, we were hit by something that was the COVID. What that year of the virus did for all of us was that it actually shrunk those 8 to 10 years that it would have naturally taken for organizations to change. What happened? Were we prepared for it? And when we look at the cloud computing side of things, how has the year looked like? Ali, I'll start off with you, and then we'll move on.
Okay, thank you so much for having me over here. So I would like to Welcome everyone who is listening to me. So moving back to your question, so cloud is something that is not for the businesses worldwide. So everyone is using cloud since almost 20 years now, since AWS started it, and then Microsoft started, and all different companies have actually started. So it's not a new for the people, but yes, its adoption was quite slow in its early days. Obviously, if we move down the road of before 10 years to 15 years, people actually don't wanted to actually adopt to the cloud because they think it's not reliable, it's not secure, our data is not secure over here, our privacy, there are privacy issues, and obviously there were some availability issues as well. So cloud was not available everywhere at that particular time. So people were even reluctant to actually adopt to the cloud. But yes, as you mentioned, since the pandemic hit the world, so it is something that actually people who were actually not willing to move to the cloud, they actually adopted it, and not even just adopted it, they actually getting max out of it. For example, Zoom is the premier example of it, that everyone is using Zoom right now. So why we actually went to Zoom? Before that, people were not used to actually go to these kind of solutions. They were of the point that they are actually a costly solution, and we should not adopt these kind of solutions, not even for our personal use and not even at enterprise level. So now people are actually getting the flavor out of it. Earlier, as I always say in my speak whenever I talk to the people, I say the flavor is in the pudding. You need to actually taste the flavor of the cloud before actually saying anything about the cloud. There are different players in the market who are actually hitting the repute of the cloud based on the measure they took to actually implement the cloud services. So yes, we really need to look to those players as well, and we need to look at the other players who are actually putting their heart and soul into their infrastructure, and they are providing you secure, reliable, and cost-effective products from the different players. So yes, pandemic has been a game changer for the cloud. Cloud has been grown over 50 to 60% in the last year, as I show you the stats of the Gartner in their report. In 2019. It was a $239 billion industry, and by the 2023 it could be a $500 billion industry, and that's a double impact from the last decade. So if we say that in a single word, that cloud, yes, cloud is the next big thing, and not only the cloud is evolving itself, and I hope the other panelists will highlight that thing as well. Now edge computing is coming, so people are looking into that thing. So edge computing is the future of the cloud, and as there are many different elements are coming to the cloud, IoT is there, AI is there, BI is there. So there are a lot of different tools that people can get benefit out in the coming future, and especially these kind of situations where we are bound to our homes and we cannot actually go to our offices, and we cannot use our enterprise applications which are actually hosted on-prem. So cloud
Yeah.
is the answer to those questions.
Absolutely. No, and look at the huge jump. I'm just also copying the stats that you were just sharing, that increasing the size of the industry to almost double what we could have speculated in a decade's time, to actually then moving it. And it comes a point in which, traditionally, conventionally, it's been spoken that developing countries, for example, countries like ours, Pakistan, for instance, we weren't too receptive towards technology adaptation. Iqbal Saab, is it something that is true? Is it something that you have also experienced? You're running a large technology based company in Pakistan as well. Aptech is a name which is very familiar to a lot of us who have grown up in the 90s as well. Is it something that you saw as a trend in Pakistan as well? Were we receptive to adapting cloud technologies, or were we just, there was some kind of a hindrance? Sir, you're muted. You'll have to unmute.
Okay, I guess you muted me. Okay, so there is a simple test, I would say, we could put forward to see whether we were receptive or not receptive. I generally quote one thing, and that this pandemic brought to us is the as Ali quoted about the Zoom and the growth of the Zoom, which Zoom never actually anticipated the way the exponential growth that the Zoom took It was wonderful, and we should be thankful to the Zoom company itself, because they actually enabled us to, cope up with this pandemic. So whether we were receptive, so just a simple thing I would say, that today our ammas, our mothers, they are used to use of Zoom. Who would never go to Zoom, who would never go to any other application, any other platform. Yes, maybe WhatsApp or Facebook, but bringing ammas to Zoom and at the grassroots level, because every part of the Pakistan, every part of even the world, there is a school going child, and every child was pushed towards the online education. And we should salute our ammas, that they were the ones who not only adopted the technology and the Zoom and the online training and online education, and they made their children enabled. So that was the level of the receptiveness. Yes, the other thing, look at the Alibaba, look at the Airlift Express, look at the Daraz.pk. I mean, Dawai, Dawago. There are so many startups which were actually struggling. There were so many were struggling before the pandemic, but as the pandemic came, this actually the cloud which was waiting for us to be to be receptive, we received that, and we adopted that very fast. Now today, we are very conveniently avoiding to go to a grocery store, the superstore, which we perhaps were very much used to of going there for getting even a toothpaste or anything. Now we are not going anymore. I mean, last night only I needed a shampoo, and I went to the Airlift Express and then they ordered that shampoo. That's it.
Yeah.
So why should I get the So that is I think yes, Pakistan responded very well, and that is the reason basically. If you see the growth of the IT industry that has we have seen in these few years has been tremendous. So it is a very good sign for us.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much, Iqbal Sahab. And I'm glad that we're also speaking about, local examples. One of the concerns that I have as somebody who deals with a lot with MSMEs and SMEs, in which, we have to give them examples. Why only give them examples of, international businesses and brands when we have such nice, good success stories coming out of the country, where we look at the last year and a half, and we look at how the Karyana stores have evolved. If we look at how the local Karyana stores have evolved in terms of their supply chain and distribution mechanics, they've even used like WhatsApp to come around that. I will have a discussion more on this, Zishan, with you later on. But before I do that, I think one of the things which has very pertinently stood out, and Iqbal Sahab, you spoke about it, and Ali, you also spoke about it, that the fact that the user experience and the user interface design has actually really increased and improved, and that has actually led to greater adoption of the cloud softwares and how conveniently we are using it, all the way from just ordering some food on Food Panda, just the sheer fact that it is so user friendly. Usman, you work on the design side, I'm also assuming. So I want to put up this question to you, that how conveniently has the way the UX and the UI experience has changed. How are we affected by these cloud services to improve on the UX and UI?
So for the UI and UX, definitely we have the multi-cloud environment, not in Pakistan, but across the world. We have the Alibaba and we have the AWS. So as far as the UI UX is concerned, is a separate service exists in not in Alibaba, but the AWS. So most of the persons who's working on the cloud and on the traditional environment, they normally know about the computing service. Like this is one of the service which actually exists in one of the domain in the cloud side. If we talk about the cloud and the multi-cloud, we have more than 200 plus services, including just like the Ali Raza and Iqbal have already told that we have the AI services, we have the machine learning services, we have the development and the compute service. So starting from compute and then move forward. So for the UI UX part, if you talk about the designing perspective, yes, we have the media services and we have the developments and the DevOps services as well, along with the compute. Because if we go more beyond the cloud computing part, we have the DevOps. Without DevOps, cloud computing is nothing, or it's incomplete, as should I say, right? And you talk about the Kiryana store, is some of the successful startup. So as I remember, we have the Easy Khata, DG Khata, Credit Books, we have the logistic, we have the Jugnu app as well. And I'm closely working with the Alibaba cloud team in Singapore and the China. So they have already introduced with the some sort of the image processing services, which is not available right now in some other cloud. Why? Because they have already influenced and they are already working with the e-commerce background, especially in the Alibaba, if I talk about. So the services which they were using in order to expand their expand their infrastructure, especially in Double 11, called the Gyara Gyara sale, right? So they now offering the same services with the new customers and the new startups. So if we compare the startups right now in 2021 as compared with the back in 10 years, they are now expanding much more faster than ever before. Why? Because we have the predefined cloud infrastructure. We have the predefined services in terms of, if I use a technical word called the IS service, platform service, and the software service. So they don't need to set up their capital expenditure. They don't need to set up their hardware, right? Just like before, we normally set up our own data center. So now they just need to do the sign up and then start working called the pay as you go model. So that's the very much easiness provide for the new startups which are coming in startup. So, and the most beautiful thing is the AWS and Alibaba provide the capital expenditures for their startups, like the $5,000 credits and the $10,000 credits. So they don't need to put any sort of tensions. They need to put any sort of capital expenditure in terms of money. The Alibaba and the AWS and the Google Cloud already providing the capital expenditure to these startups.
Yeah, absolutely. And we see that, again, I think it's all boiling down to the fact that yes, there was a lot of talk, yes, there was a lot of discussion, yes, our implementation, the speed that it has taken has been phenomenal the last 2 years. Zishan, this brings me to you. You're leading the ICT. It's one of the main key areas in which, this MIA was also parked, and also, a lot of the work that has been happening the last 4-5 years has been around using ICT, enabling ICT, and blending it as part of the, the SME culture. What have you seen the last year? How have things evolved for the SMEs as well? Has the reluctance or the ability to invest into cloud computing, is it there? Do you see a lot of inclination as somebody who's also funding a lot of startups? Does your USAID also look at what is the implementation level of the startups as well?
Yeah, first of all, thank you, Noor here. I think we have had some wonderful inputs here. As far as the SMEs are concerned, we need to understand a couple of things here. Some data which might further enable this discussion. We have more than 5.2 million SMEs in Pakistan with a transactional volume of over $110 billion every year on an annual basis. So having said that and understanding this aspect, even if we if we want to gauge the market size for cloud-based services, these SMEs are not even investing 0.2% of their total spendings right now for IT services, whereas as per the Gartner, more than in established markets, not the emerging markets but the established markets, these spendings have already grown from 2% all the way to 13 and 14%, right? So where when we see and when we say that that there is a lot of traction going on, yes, to an extent of some basic utility services such as some basic collaborative tools, especially like Zoom and Microsoft Teams and so forth. But if you see other than some IT related SMEs, if you go to some other sector, utility sectors, or even if you go to some again we are talking about Kirana stores, so the need, they have now realized the need, yes, but are they adopting it? I still believe that in emerging market, it is still comparatively slower than the established markets right now. 0.2% makes it up for approximately for a market of like 110 billion, somewhere around $220 million or so. So are we still there? I think we are not still there. We are maybe pretty much down in terms of how this cloud market actually exists in Pakistan right now, which is acting around including all public and private players, somewhere around 60 odd million dollars, in fact lower than that. So I think there is a lot to be done yet. And yes, US aid as far as the startups are concerned, a lot of you're all very aware of the fact that Challenge Fund is there, and they have been promoting this culture of entrepreneurship and startups for a long time now. And SMIA itself has been doing a lot of hand holding for the government to actually get hold of the data, trying to get things in order. And recently we have assisted the government of Sindh to actually come up with a domestic commerce policy where they can actually enable their local traders, their local merchants on that side, especially in the secondary and tertiary markets, to get a bigger engagement with large scale markets such as Karachi and Lahore. But at the same time, they need to have the right kind of infrastructure for it as well. So until they don't have the infrastructure, there has to be some handholding to be done by the government. And for that, we have already proposed them something like, the last 20-mile approach, especially where we can bring some e-commerce players, logistics companies, payment gateways, people who can help merchants in digital onboarding. And that's where, the real opportunity lies. And that is where the government would also sit in with them and try to have that collaboration, using a single window operations on that side. So yes, this is where altogether the market prevails at this point in time. Now, with my closing remarks to your question, back in 2019, I was actually asked by the principal of my kids to actually come and give a bit of lecture on educational technologies on that side. So I went in there and I told them a couple of things that, see, going forward, and this is like May 2019, I tell you very frankly, I told them a couple of things. The first one was that, see, there is the role of a teacher is going to be that of a coach in the modern times when you come to blended education system. And blended education system would further help your students to actually consume content in a split of a second. For instance, it's a 30-second video can help you consume as much data or content as of a 20 minutes class. So 30-second. Now these are some researches which are available today online as we speak. And at the same time, when I asked the teachers, okay, how much FaceTime do you have with your smartphones? So they said that, okay, we have on average, like we are using 4 hours a day. So I just asked them a simple question, why you're not using it for learning and earning? So they didn't have any questions right now. I think we are still to embrace that culture right now, which is not as much, I would say, I don't want to be too negative about it, but yes, we are getting there. That's how I will conclude my remarks on that.
Yeah, no, so some very important points that I picked up from what you said, Zishan. And I guess if we speak and if I comment on the fact that the government needs to create that conducive environment, I think over the last couple of years as well, the kind of reporting that we have seen coming out with the Pakistan Vision 2025, and then with the Pakistan at 100 report that has come out, seeks to have, information technology right at the top. But in specifically when we speak about the SMEs and we speak about the culture, I know that as an SME founder, or somebody who's also running an SME myself, I know the kind of difficulties an SME owner would face, even if we are 5.2 million SMEs spread across the country. But in the lack of a policy for the SMEs, which is, I think, still getting constructed. We still have to yet see the implementation. But if we can collectively take this platform in terms of our voice coming across to the wider government community, we do know that the Global Digital Summit was also inaugurated by the President of Pakistan, Arif Alvi, just yesterday. And, we need to have that collective voice coming across from, all different stakeholders that are here today as well. But another thing that, we picked up, and Ali, I'll come round to you on this question, and then Iqbal Saab and Usman and Zishan, you can all comment on this. There has been this debate with cloud computing always around global data protection regimes. I read through it a lot. I was, in fact, like a victim of the GDPR as well. Just a general understanding that how useful, how much of a big deal our data protection is for us. And then lo and behold, we had to see, Mark Zuckerberg go through this entire process of the trial that he went through on data protection. So my question to all of you is, all the experts who are working on the cloud computing side, is our data really protected? Ali?
So should I give it a go right now?
No, Zishan will come round to you. I want to hear from Ali, because he's representing Alibaba. So I want him to go first, and then I'll come round to you.
I believe that's a very pertinent question, and that would be in everyone's mind, that how much my data is secure in the cloud. So data security has always been the main concern for every businesses or every organization that they are willing to actually host their data on the cloud. So we at times that we only talk about data security. There is nothing else on the cloud. So people actually want to know more about how my data is secured on the cloud. So I normally ask people the question about that as well: how your data is secure in-house. There is another question to that. So if you do not want to host your data on the cloud, that is, I believe, in any way is the more secure than your own data centers. So how do you think your data is secure in your own data centers? Even I know the people personally that they actually copy their data on the floppy disk and USB and physical hard drives, and they can take it to their home and call it as a DR. So the concept of the people over here, especially if we talk about the Pakistani market, it is an evolving market, as Usman said, as Iqbal Sahab said, and as Zishan said, it's an evolving market, and we are in emerging market. So people are still knowing about the cloud. Still, a lot of organization doesn't know about the cloud, so they do not know about the data security as well. So at Alibaba, we actually care a lot about these, especially the data security and data privacy concept as well. And we have introduced a lot of different data security solutions in our service portfolio as well. So our data is encrypted throughout, and we are PCI DSS certified as well. We are all of our data centers are Gdpr compliant as well. So we put a lot of focus on data security. And even if we talk about Pakistani government, as we were discussing about how government is actually supporting these initiatives over here in Pakistan, so we would like to actually appreciate our current government initiatives, especially with respect to our digital policy and the policy that they have recently issued with respect to cyber security as well. So a lot of different organizations over here, especially the financial institutes, they actually do not comply to these recommendations, which has been already issued by the State Bank and the other bodies like SCCP. So they do not actually comply to those. Even I would tell you that only one bank in Pakistan, that is the PCI DSS certified banks, out of every bank in Pakistan. So this is something that we really need to focus on. Data security, as President Arif Alvi actually mentioned in his inaugural speech yesterday, that data is the next oil. So we really need to know how we need to actually use our data. So if we cannot protect our data, we cannot protect anything. So the data is the next big thing. A lot of different analytics and a lot of different BI and AI has been done on the data. Just like if I give an example of the garage, so we actually put a lot of effort in data analytics. So how we can actually make our customer experience better. So this is something that we really need to learn as an organization and as a professional as well, that we really need to focus more on getting most out of our data that is on hand with us. So and if I obviously talk about some of the local service providers over here, so I really need to appreciate who are actually doing a great job, especially Rapid, which has been a PCI, which is the one of the first cloud service provider in Pakistan, which is PCI DSS certified as well and Gdpr certified as well. So a lot of local homegrown startups are doing a really great job, especially in the cloud computing and in this industry.
Fantastic. No, thank you so much for sharing this, Ali, because I guess one of the reasons why there's also this kind of like a hesitance, you can say, or maybe fear, you can say, is because, there's generally a lack of awareness around the certifications also that are available for cybersecurity. Zishan, you wanted to say something. Is our data secure?
Yeah, actually, thank you once again. As far as the data is secure on cloud, I'd like to start with Amazon, which I'm a little more aware of. They have more than 117, I believe, security certifications available for their, cloud. And as far as the compliances are concerned, I think 90 odd compliances for security purposes. Now we have to actually look how the data is actually, controlled and processed. Since you talked about the GDPR. So first of all, the data is controlled by the owner or the usually the custodian. And custodian could be a company, it could be a state, it could be, a user by themselves, right? So if the data is secure on cloud, number one, yes. If the data is secure while being transmitted on cloud, maybe. And whether the data is secure on the end user side, I would say no. So it's a simple, proposition if you just segment it down, because endpoint security is still a concern. People are not adopting it because we are still not adopting Office 365 for that matter. So how can we just go on and start buying licenses for endpoint security on that side? We are always looking for freeware and free stuff, and free stuff come with some cost, like advertising, some phishing, and all that stuff. So that is where services on cloud such as desktop as a service, and then you have business processing as a service were actually introduced, and we could see a lot of the service providers coming in. Even you can see on different marketplaces that Oracle and SAP, they are offering their own business processes. But again, they are still a lavish thing for an SME. They don't need it. One of the greatest example in today's date and time is DigiKhata, for that matter. Now, DigiKhata is something very appropriate and very relevant service, for a Kiryana store, for that matter. It is kind of an EPOS as well. It can also be integrated with the FBR EPOS on that side, right? But when it comes to offering something to the SMEs, I think these public cloud players, they need a little bit more granularity. They need to come up with what they are offering as a service, or as a feature of a service. They need to offer it as a service. So that's where the granularity is still missing, and that is where the traction is not taking place, and that is where markets like Pakistan, or emerging markets like Pakistan, are lagging behind. Another example is today, if you go online and try to buy a single user license for Office 365, they'll charge you somewhere around 10,000 rupees a year for cloud based, and if you want to have it on on your own system, that goes up to 22,000 rupees, right? But if you go to AWS for similar services, they are still charging you in dollars. So they are really not localizing the services. Yet they see a market, but they still are looking at issues concerning, this GDPR or some Personal Data Protection Act and so forth. But this risk has nothing to do with, how you actually organize or, commercialize your product for, different markets on that side. So there are some challenges, yes. And finally, as far as the GDPR and data protection is concerned, this is the new norm. I mean, I've been working with global policymakers, and they are all of the view that if data is the new oil, then it's a resource and it's tangible. And if it's tangible, it needs to be protected, not from a cybersecurity perspective only or information security, but from an asset perspective as well. And we have seen some very good initiatives from the SECP, where they have recognized digital assets, and now lending based on digital assets is also starting to take place. So yes, there are some challenges which, while evolution you will face, but over a given time period, you will find it more, complementing to your businesses when it comes to, any data protection act or any such policies, which may help you further improve the governance of your data. So this is where I leave you.
Yeah, no, very rightly said. Iqbal Saab, your thoughts on this? I think Zishan has spoken very well on the fact that data is an asset. Just to give you an example, if all of us were to ask Ali right now that the Daraz live streaming of the T20 matches, can he share with us some statistics? I'm sure he'd say no. Can he share how many million users were there, and what were their demographics, and how did they react, and what was their exit rate and entry rate, and how much purchases were done with the side buttons of the blobs that were coming? See, I'm coming. Usman must be relating to us, because I'm talking extremely in terms of a user interface model. I caught up all my matches on that. So Iqbal sir, just on a lighter note, your thoughts on
this? One statistic. So there were over 30 million active users on our app in Pakistan, which we have actually witnessed. And our overall app usage has been increased 10 times, which we were actually expecting in the last 5 years. So it was double that. So it has been a huge success in our.
Ali, I'm going to reach out to you on behalf of CXO Global Forum. You must write a case study on this with me.
I would say Daraz has actually zoomed basically in this. So yes, that was a great move on behalf of Daraz. Coming to the point that whether the data is secure or not, so I would say both Ali and Zishan, like you see, the control of the data lies with us. Whether we want our data to be secure or we don't want to, our data want to be shared or something. So now that actually the norm is like every app would ask you whether you are being tracked or you want to be tracked down the other application surface, while surfing on the other application, browsing on other side. So if you say yes, then your data is now free to go there. So and if you say no, then but there is a dilemma. Basically, yes, we want Google Map to guide us, but we don't want Google to track us. So see, we can't have both things in our hand. So yes, there is some level of compromise. Then you go for the trust, the applications and the companies that you trust. Okay, your data is there, but every company. If I say my data is purely my asset, I'd say it's wrong, because Facebook is providing you a service to enjoy, to make up your environment and everything, but that's not free of cost. Of course, they would be using your data. So similarly, even Daraz, even everything, I have very interesting experiences with while using Daraz. So they would track you, they would understand you. That's the actually AI part of that. Every app wants to understand you, your likeness, your dislikeness, your purchases, your volume of purchases, your amount of purchases, and that's where they come up with their offerings. So that is all done with your data. So now, if you don't want, they should be using your data, then I think you won't be able to actually get 100% out of that application or out of that service that is being provided. But on the other side, yes, if that data is being sold to others, so I think the companies have matured. The cloud services are getting matured now. I think many of the enterprises are looking into it, as you mentioned in earlier. Mark Zuckerberg facing the trial, and very rigorous trial. So I think that's the lesson. Also, now they ask you whether you want your data to be, or they intimate you. Now it's up to you. Basically, opening the door, the key is in your hand. Now you want somebody to let into your house, okay, fine, then you should be ready for the consequences or anything that you. So one thing is this, and I would also say one more. How secure is your actually organization data? In while you are holding that data at your it's within your organization, do you think that HR is so? Hello? Hello?
Yes, sir, we can hear you now.
Okay, you can. So I was lost in between?
A little bit, just for a little bit.
Okay. So that's what I was saying. Even maintaining the data security within the organization is more difficult, because you have to trust then on a single person who is managing your network services, who is your system administrator or network administrator, your local data. If you are managing your servers or your data on your own servers, so the whole data is in his hand. You can just trust just like that, but there is no authentication, no certification, no one to basically make you feel secure. But in the cloud side, yes, your data is somewhat secure until unless you are not ready to expose yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. No, and I really like this, Iqbal sir. I mean, it's just like another normal thing. If we have to take the courage and we have to drive a car, it comes with the risk that khuda na khasta accident ho jayega. So it is essentially with that thought that there has to be some level of compromise. Usman, I want to pose the last question for you. We just have a little shy of 10 minutes. This is a question that a lot of people who are attracted by AI, they're attracted by cloud computing, they're attracted by technology transformation, whatever researchers they have studied, all of them are actually converging to this point. And this is a question that we get a lot. Which of the three, software as a service, infrastructure as a service, or platform as a service, what would be your pick?
For AI, right?
For any kind of, you could say any kind of a startup, any company who wants to scale up and be like the next unicorn in the next 2-3 years. Which of the three?
It's totally depend on the scenario. For example, like the DG Khata. If the DG Khata or the Easy Khata is a microservices, definitely they would like to use the platform as a service in terms of Dockers and Kubernetes, right? But if we have the monolithic applications, right, definitely I would like to go for the IaaS, infrastructure service. So all is depend on the scenario, and your application and your startup is totally depend, like your applications, like your servers, like what should I say, your email service, for example. If you are looking some cloud who is hosting your email service, definitely you will go for the software as a service. Instead of deploying your own virtual hardware, deploying your own Exchange servers, you would rather go for the Amazon Workmail or the Alibaba Mail or the Google Workspace, something like that. So it's all about the scenario. As far as the AI is concerned, AI as the Google Cloud as a gardener and the market leader of the AI and the ML, right, in the AI and ML side. But you can use that service on the Alibaba too, Alibaba Cloud and the AWS itself. So these type of services normally you prefer for the software as a service, because it's a predefined models, predefined algorithms are available, predefined tools are available. For example, the machine learning recognition services just need to deploy the algorithms and then they will start working.
Great. No, sounds good. And yes, I know where you're coming from. Ali, your thoughts on this? Which of the three?
Yeah, as Usman mentioned, it totally depends upon the nature of the business that you are doing. Especially for the startup, that most of the startups really do not have that funds available. They do not have that kind of HR available. So they really want someone to actually back their hand and give them such kind of service which have everything built in. So it's like, so they really want to go for SaaS and PaaS based kind of solutions. And especially when it comes to other SMEs and the other large industrial or banks, is financial sector. So they actually go for mix and match. For example, someone take the email services, that is a SaaS-based solution, that someone take their infrastructure as a service because they do not want to host their, they do not want to maintain their own data center. So they primarily go for IaaS. And then they go for the mix and match for the SaaS and the PaaS kind of solutions. So it totally depends upon the nature of the business and obviously the deep pockets you have. For example, if you actually have very deep pockets, just like banks and the other large manufacturing customers, you have that kind of budget that you can maintain your own data center, you can maintain your DR side on the cloud. So they also go for the cloud, but obviously not for the primary option, but for the DR option. It's like that. So it totally depends upon the nature of the business.
Great, excellent, fantastic. So I think in that rat race, because we're speaking about SMEs, I don't know, Zishan's dropped off the call. Team, if we can see if we can get Zishan back just for a final comment. Iqbal Sahab, I'll move around to you. This is a very interesting thought that was shared very recently in a session that I attended with Irfan Wahab Sahab, and he said that, you know, in COVID we were the first movers in terms of, you know, getting employees off and offering a work from home option. The trouble post COVID has now become, how do we get these people back? It took them 6 months to get warm up to the idea of working from home and figuring out, you know, all the dynamics, figuring out a place, understanding that there's going to be a requirement of technology. So now the challenge would become, and I think a greater challenge would be with, you know, offering cloud computing services, for example, you know, that larger number of our you know, employee base, our HR personnel would be at home. Would it be an okay strategy for organizations like yourself to allow that flexibility? Would we be looking at that 365 days a year office? So you're muted.
Okay.
Yes.
I think again, just depend on the like the nature of the business. But yes, like if you talk about the software houses and some of the many of the IT companies, like you saw that these I know many of the companies, and I've been following that their profitability went high in the COVID. Like in the while they were working from home, but that's not valid for every segment of the business. Like if we say about the online education, online training, that is something which is very, very difficult, because training and education needs 100% personal interaction, that needs eye contact, that need like your facial expressions to understand. The mentor is mentoring somebody but he can't see them whom he is mentoring, or what are his expressions, or what is he taking basically off from his talk. So that is only possible when he is face to face. So yes, but in some organizations, some business segments, that's very good. You can allow your people to work from home because you don't need them to be at the office, and that's how you can cut your costs, cut their traveling costs, their expenses, their time, and their productivity increases and everything. And similarly, there is a hybrid model also. Like many of the organization, even is still in around the world, are using that hybrid model, that you have to come a couple of days in the office, and get acquainted with the people that you are forgetting the faces, and and get refreshed, and go back home and work from home for rest of the 3-4 days. So that is also there. But I think, see, this we have just started a roadmap into that direction of going cloud, going online, going like work from home. Uh, we never had in our system, our HR system, we had the leave types, but we never had WFH, work from home. So we had to introduce that WFH, that, okay, this guy never came on site, but where was he? But he was still there in the office. So we had to provide that the facility, and that they could sign in from the home, and their presence is actually recorded and recognized. So there are challenges for some organizations, some businesses in this direction, and there are facilities on the other hand too. So again, it depends on the nature of the business, what is the business, and that's how you decide how to go forward.
Great, excellent. Usman, if we could have your thoughts.
So for the work from home, definitely it's hard to bring them back to the office. But definitely, as far as the cloud impact on the work from home, that's the other part of discussion. But I would like to add in this part that the cloud add the major role in order to move forward to start establishing a work from home environment. Let's start from the DaaS service, like the desktop as a service, which start from the Amazon and the Google and then Alibaba Cloud, is allow us to work a virtual environment for all those employees who are working from office, now working from home, just like the virtual office. So it will be easy for the office and the management to handle either work from home or either work from office, because एक दफा जब चस्का पड़ जाए उसको घर से काम करने का, so it will be hard to bring them back to the office, right? And the productivity, if you see the productivity as compared with work from office and work from home, definitely the productivity is increased because they are working not in the 8 hours of shift, but beyond the 8 hours, like 10 hours or 12 hours. And they can start their shift by their own time. There is not the fixed timing, it's a flexible timing. Definitely you cannot do this, the flexible timing on the office environment.
Yeah, I'm so
on a lighter note, that your question was how to bring them back. So there is a question from the school kids, that when will be the next lockdown? So we would say, okay, ask Shafkat uncle.
but Iqbal Saab, and just to tell Usman that he mentioned that there is more flexibility. I am so glad that there was not a woman on this panel as well, and I could speak on their behalf. It was quite an ordeal for us to manage the unlimited amount of tea sessions and chai sessions and the kids and managing your meetings. So yes, I mean, I'm sure for all the females who would be watching us, they could be able to relate that we couldn't be happier that the work from office option is still there. Ali, what were we able to do with your office space?
Yeah, I just wanted to add one point. On the other side, other than the lighter note, on the very positive side, it has actually given employer an option as well, that earlier they didn't have any option just to give leaves to their employees other than working from home. So there was no concept of working from home prior to this pandemic. So now actually employer has an option available that there is a concept of work from home, and especially by the availability of the cloud services, now they can actually take this as an option and give to their employees as well that yes, you can work from home, but these are your timings and you have to be present and you have to work from your home, and it is very eligible option as well. So now people actually want to prefer working from office rather than working from home, because at home, as Usman mentioned, they're doing actually an extra work and an extra shift without getting any extra payment. So
Yeah.
uh, this is an option available for the employees. Yes, they are exercising it. A lot of different companies worldwide now has actually put it as an option to their employees as well, that either they want to come to office or they want to work remotely as well. So
Yeah.
this is something that is very good that we have learned from this pandemic, and cloud is being the part of this initiative as well.
Absolutely. No, so I guess then the five days a week work week looks really attractive, and you could pick up one day and work from home if the need be. That creates greater inclusivity. I think it also creates a well-rounded image of the country as well. Zishan, your thoughts? Are you back at office? I know all the donors took a longer time to be back to offices.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Actually, we have still been working from home, frankly speaking, and it's a little bizarre for me now. Right? It's really taking a toll at my because we who are in the 40s right now, we were really not accustomed to this kind of environment to start with. And frankly speaking, yes, the new normal is here. People are embracing. I know a few telecommunication operators and some IT companies, those who have made their working hours flexible. But I'll actually try to make you guys analyze it from a perspective of an analogy. Back in 2019, embracing the sustainable development goals, the government of France actually came up with an idea that by 2030, they would want that every community, every society, every district which they have within their country would have each type of facility within a area of 2 square kilometers. Now the reason was they want to make their entire country carbon free. Now this was the concept they came up with. Now with COVID coming to the rising to this situation, I think people have now started realizing that sitting back in office is no more necessary. But it is actually, on the other end, it is taking a bit of toll in the sense that there are no working hours. There has to be some schedule associated with it. This is my personal perspective. Not necessarily that everybody has to agree with it, but there has to be some discipline associated with it, because otherwise, because previously we were more a time-based and time management community. Now we are more of a task-based system. We are moving towards a task-based system instead of time bombard, which is good from productivity point of view. But again, yielding those results is still a challenge. 2 years down the road, maybe the millennials would be more comfortable with it. But we are still, trying to hustle through it. I'll be very frank with you. There has to be some, we need to strike a balance in this regard. Yes, and at the end of the day, cloud is playing a pivotal role in it. And as some of the participants mentioned, the e-commerce ecosystem, especially coming into effect with omni-channel options. And these omni-channel options have paid a lot. But again, I would like to tell you something, again, putting some data into perspective here. According to State Bank report, out of all the online transactions which are taking place today, which has already crossed, I think, $23 billion on that side. But out of all these online transactions, only 5.4 million transactions were that of e-commerce transactions, only 5.4. So it means that there is still cash on delivery going on around.
Yeah.
And these kind of things still needs a lot of impetus even to go forward with. So there needs to be a lot to be done on the government part, and I'm sure these startups are evolving, and they now understand the need of their own also coexistence. I'm sure those who have actually traveled in Kareem in the recent past may have experienced one thing. जी cash की ride है, तो हम आपकी ride लेंगे, and cash की ride they'll just drop you off. So this is this prevails within us, because there is something which is unsustainable for those people. Because once if we are saying that this is the sharing economy is at its peak as we speak, then why it is not sustainable for either the business or the consumer, or maybe for the one who is actually offering the service through this kind of an ecosystem. So yes, again, we have to strike a little bit of balance. And concluding on a note that cloud is the way to go. There is no other option other than cloud. But how we have to embrace it, how we have to evolve as far as the cloud infrastructure is concerned, that needs to be further deliberated. This is
no, thank you so much. And on that note, thank you so much, gentlemen. I think it's been a fantastic discussion that we have had, and we also assume that the viewers who will be watching us learned some new perspectives out of this as well. We completely agree with you, Zishan, Iqbal Saab, Usman, and Ali, that it's here to stay. The speed and the pace of implementation would not be as precedented. I think we would be on a roller coaster ride embracing the cloud computing technologies very soon. So the next generation that's following us, our children, would be in a better, I would say, speed and exposure and greater adaptation of technology. With that, thank you so much, my esteemed panel. I think this has been a wonderful discussion. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Over to the CXO team now.